fell in love with this game in IndieX, but many times when we investigate behind the surface we end up finding an empty shell. Abandoned Ship picks up the faster than light formula, and in addition to doing it very well, it shows impressive attention to detail for such a game. Since you are here, why not giving a help to a small channel like mine? A like, a comment, or even better, a subscription would be great, and I would thank you so much for it. Abandoned Ship is a real-time strategy mixed with a faster-than-light style exploration game. We start the game by fleeing a cult called The Cult, an annoying quirk that the latest Assassin's Creed eventually copied. What cult is going to be self-proclaimed The Cult? Does not make sense. When we escape, we save some people that eventually become our crew on a ship that serves as our escape vessel. From there on, it begins our journey to the end of this cult, and this involves fights against many boats, the Kraken, and also a lot of Alifrons, hybrid beings between man and fish, who are worshipped by the cult and who are also important parts in the unfolding of the story. The story itself is nothing memorable, but perfectly acceptable. Talking about the sound, I will start from the beginning. The main theme of this game is simply fantastic. Probably since my times in Europa Universalis I did not got anything like this magnitude, not even with Civ. If it was only for this reason the game would be a 10, but it is not. The other sound effects are competent, but since many of the actions are repeated, the voice lines are also. And this can be perfectly intended because in practice all voice lines serve to warn us or prepare us for an event that requires an immediate action of our part. In this, they fulfill their purpose quite well. They are all clear and unmistakable. Graphically, the game is much more detailed than I'm used to for the price point. I can give the example of the several layers of terrain, boats, sailors and weapons that are also very detailed. But here there are already some problems, especially in the animations since they are a bit clunky at times. Then, for a sea-themed game, the sea is nothing special and the Kraken leaves much to be desired, as it seems more polygonal and with animations with some delay. Each shot of the opponent is likely to cause damage that has to be repaired, and if we stop the game we can immediately see which ones will or will not need those repairs. But without that pause is not something that we notice easily, which is not what we want when the action to repair needs to be done as fast as possible. So the pause button was my best friend during the battles. The game as a melee component that I expected to be more strategic, but in practice it becomes a bit of a wiggle, being very difficult to understand what is happening and who is winning. The detail is important because sometimes we have to revive a sailor and we do not know where or who it is. In terms of gameplay, I'm going to split it in two sections, exploration and battle in real time. In the exploration section, we control a ship on top-down view on a map covered with fog of war, and we are discovering the zones as we sail. On each map there are some clearly identifiable events. Some trigger a battle, others gives us immediate money or items, and others are tied to some kind of random number generator, which usually involves killing an element of our crew. I did not find these events minimally balanced. As a rule, they harmed me a lot more and soon I stopped interacting with them. We even have an event that when started it brings us rats. And the way the game presents itself does not make sense on that regard. The interaction points are identified on the map, so they also gives us a possibility to avoid some of them. but in most maps we need to interact with all or almost all events to open the passage for new maps. Many of these maps have ports where we can upgrade the boat, buy new ones, recruit more crew, apply some perks, etc. It's a nice and well-imagined way to introduce a story in the game. With the time that we spend exploring in almost all the maps, the cult will search and find us. We have an indicator at the bottom of the screen that shows how close they are to finding us, and when they do it, it triggers one of three events. Either you are attacked by a stronger cult boat, or you are attacked by the Kraken, or by a few Alifrons attempting to kill your crew in a huge confusing melee fight. The strategy component is more noticeable in the combat section. It begins immediately by the crew that has different specializations. Excluding the role of the healer, they do everything, but with different efficiency. Some who has the gunnery specialty will carry the cannons or mortars much faster than anyone who does not. With the repeated use of an action, you will develop your skills in that same action. The concept is interesting. I have specialized my crew in ranged combat, which has screwed me in the endgame, where end-to-end combat is very important. To win a fight, you can sink the opponent or kill the entire crew to sell the ship. The difference of values does not compensate the risk, reason why I always choose to sink the ship since it was the easiest way to end a fight. Strategically, there is variability, but you quickly end up fighting in the most overpowered way you find. Once we understand the mechanics, we are always following the same strategy. In my case, it was damaging the sails, go through successive runs. And if the adversary did not have a healer, I also choose to attack the medical section of the ship, as this always required constant repairs, thus removing the sailors from the sectors where they could attack me. And so we come to the bigger problem of the game. It becomes repetitive. Okay, you do not always fight boats, but the bulk of the game is that. Of course, the last fight against the Kraken was remarkable, but from there on the game descends in enthusiasm. Just a little bit, but it descends. When I started picking up story missions, I thought my enthusiasm would grow again, but it didn't. The game ends up stagnating. Although this game has permadeath, this one turns out to be weird. When I died, my biggest loss was the crew. I ended up starting recruiting prisoners because at one point the difficulty was too much for what I could do. The saves we can do give a little help, and the option to leave before a fight ends without recording also has turned out to be my friend. There was also a morale system, but I never realized what it was for, and I only realized the function of fish or food later in the game, when I noticed we need them when changing to a new map. Moreover, it seems that there are immense events in which morale descends and almost none in which it rises. In a nutshell, the game is full of delicious details like our name moving to an NPC in other games after approval, levels of wanted that we can lower by attacking pirates who control trade routes, we can attack forts. There is the option to escape that when it fails it gives an advantage to the opponent, but the game is not made of details, it is made of mechanics. Here they are solid mechanics and well interconnected, but very repetitive. The usual temptation to prefer a 20-hour game experience changes the game from a great 10 hours experience for a solidish 20 strong hours experience. All in all, in my opinion, it's a game that is well worth the asked price and where I had a lot of fun. See you next time, guys. Bye!